You could tell a man about a distance travel. I'm a seeker of knowledge. I'm a nerd. I always want to learn. And whenever you stop learning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you die.
What up, guys? It's your boy Alu,
Yo, it's your boy Ron.
and we're the Amateur Builders. Welcome back to today's episode. Today we actually have somebody new. We have
Bob Ponce.
we're supposed to have a special dedicated episode for Bob. It's still gonna happen, but today we just wanted to come and just have a little bit of conversation. Um, we've just been having like before we started recording, we were just talking. I just felt like today was gonna be like a good episode to just rather than have like a whole structure, just have like a conversation, just talk. So
Yeah, Bob
before
is
we
a.
actually get to that, let's just talk about the week first. How was your week, Ron?
I'll go with Bob first.
You wanna go with Bob? Sure.
Yeah.
Now, my week was chill. I spent most of it with my family. I actually took some time off, but just trying to keep up with all the stuff that's going on, the AI stuff, what's going on with companies. Is Zuckerberg going to fight Musk? Are they not going to fight Musk?
Hopefully.
Who I got to
Who you
win that?
betting on?
Oh, it's got to be Zucker win that all
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
every
you
day.
got
He's
to.
been training, even though he's shorter. He has Musk has a weight advantage, but I think Zuck has been waiting just to,
Kick ass. Like,
yeah,
use his
yeah.
his learning.
And the proof, I mean, Zuck called him out because he said, I gave him dates. He doesn't want to do it. If he does, he knows where to find me. So that's where he left it.
Week.
So,
Nah, that's funny. Yeah. So my week, it was pretty good. I was just telling them before we started recording about Group M. So I'm still onboarding, but today I actually met my manager, and we just was talking about what like the day to day is gonna be like. He basically was just like going about the structure of the specific team. So I'm gonna be directing investment. Honestly, don't know what that is. I mean, I have like a little. We learned a little bit about it, but when it comes to like the actual day to day, you don't truly know what's gonna happen. I just know like we're probably gonna be like allocating budgets towards new ads for our client, which is IBM. And I literally have a full circle moment with IBM because I used to work for them
Yeah,
last year summer as an intern.
yeah.
So it's just now I'm working for them on an agency side of like, you know, creating ads for them and seeing the measurement of it. So it's gonna be pretty interesting.
So what's the most exciting thing that you're excited about?
I think just like from like I think knowing where they want to go in terms of like how they see themselves in the world going to be interesting because it got me to think back from even when I first started at IBM like yo like where I think I asked my lead too like yo where is IBM going. Like sometimes I just need that overall like visionary thing to then know okay on the granular level like all right this is what we're going to be doing. So I think from that I just had that thought back again like yo where's IBM going like
All right,
where are
so
they going?
yeah, exactly. So where do you think they should go, or what do you think is the best approach for them to actually establish themselves in this new age?
so from like my recollection I think their three main I'm just going to use their three main like revenue drivers. So I think it was like one was the consultant arm that's really big. They bring in most of the cash, IBM consultant. I think their second one, I'm probably gonna forget or botch some of it. Is just like it was their hardware still, so they still sell good hardware,
Mm-hmm.
like memory devices and stuff like that. And the third one, honestly, I forgot, but I think they're moving more towards now like quantum and trying to be the leader in quantum. So I think they should stick to that. They should stick to like they already just doing the AI thing with Watson AI, like, and they was good at that. So I think it's just continue that, but stick with like maybe something visionary like a quantum computer, and just work with governments and just try and like build that. That'll definitely put them ahead. So yeah,
Good advice. Um,
yeah.
this see
How's
my
your
week.
yeah?
Um, the week was hectic. I've been moving around a lot. I've been trying to help my little nephew get ready for college. So he's actually a freshman in college. So it's just like trying to help him get organized, make sure he has everything he needs. And I actually drove him today he go to Thomas Jefferson. The campus is really nice. It was a really nice campus. Um, it was like 2 hours away. I woke up at like 6. I didn't even get no sleep. It was just like woke up, drove him there, helped him move in. So that was a good low part of like the week. That was like the most exciting thing in the week. Is just like
Are you excited for
yeah,
him? You're like,
just
yo, he's
seeing,
about to go have
just
fun.
seeing like we grew up together. Just seeing him go to college, like that's an accomplishment. And then he got a full ride scholarship too
That's
to play
cool.
basketball. So it's just like it's something that he's been wanting to do for a while. So just like seeing him make it happen.
He was excited, like in
Yeah,
the
he's
car.
happy.
He's like,
Like yeah, full ride scholarship. Like you don't got to pay nothing,
facts.
nothing out of pocket. Everything is paid for. It's amazing. So shout out to my boy Farouk, man.
Yeah. Going on,
But let's
man.
jump into some of the topics that we covered today. Um,
Just gonna do the news, right? Like, just
yeah,
run with them.
some of just
We
latest
could just
tech
go from
news.
there. We could just like it's just talking shop. Like we're not doing nothing crazy. Just gonna
Yeah.
have a good conversation.
So I think something that Ron put was how does a startup lose its spark? Meaning like when does a startup just like loses that shine that it has? What do you think, Bob?
Well, I think if it gets to a point where it's not able to show its traction in the market, show its product market fit, um, or alternatively show that it has the ability to pivot, because even if a startup is not doing well in its initial mission, there are a lot of startups that figure that out in enough time to pivot. Instagram was a classic example of that. Whatever their original concept, no one ever remembers. All they know is that in the middle they said, all right, this is not working, we need to do this picture thing.
Yeah.
And then they ended up selling it to Facebook, you know and and everybody was happy. All the original investors happy. All the people who are on that have a win because they have an exit now on their resume. So as far as losing the spark, I think if people start to lose their vision, or if you have dissent amongst the management team, there's a lot of things that you get into it, and then somewhere along the line you have misaligned visions in terms of what direction things are going, and it can collapse.
Yeah. Adding on to what Bob just said, I think he summed it up pretty well. But I think one of the biggest things that a lot of people at startups don't do is actually communicate with their consumers, the people who's actually using their product. And I think if a startup stops communicating and having like that direct communication with their consumers, then automatically it's gonna fail. So if they start having bad communication with their consumers, then it's gonna lose its spark very fast. So I think that's one of the biggest things that if you want to like continuously have a great product and have a good startup, is always starting from a consumer base, like thinking about your consumer, how your consumer is interacting with your product, how can you make your product even better. So just having that communication with the your consumer is always the most important thing, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree to all of that. And then I think on top of it is just like maybe mentioning the founders themselves, like maybe that the accolades and the news press, it could probably get to you that you're thinking like you're doing something, but definitely
You think like
reference.
making it personalized, like having like the founders actually like talk more about themselves and like talk
Yeah,
about their
not
story?
just about like focusing on, like you said, the consumer. Like, hey, like it's like going back to those like founders who was actually fraudsters, and they had all the headlines and like what's her name, Elizabeth Holmes, like the next Steve Jobs and the great visionary and 30 under 30, and like yeah, but her
Yeah, she
business
got
sucks.
niggas ass, bro. She
Yeah, but
got
the
niggas
business
ass,
suck.
bro.
Like it's fake. It's nothing. It's not a innovative solution she's creating, and it's like that loses the spark because there's too much media coverage, and it's like they have businesses that's extremely well, like doing so great. You
Hmm.
don't know nothing about them, and I think that could just get to you, and you thinking you're doing something good, and you're not. Like so, it definitely reference what you said. Just going back to like consumer and like customer, making sure that
So, what do you think is a better approach? Having a product led startup or having a founder led startup, meaning like having a person actually like be like the face of like the startup.
Yeah, Bob.
Well, I think if there's one person and that person has the overriding vision, then it's not really a problem having a face of the startup. But in the Elizabeth Holmes case, if it's just out and out fraud, yeah, at some point in time, the wheels are going to fall off. And the industry obviously is susceptible to that type of, it's not like she's the only one. You look at the guy from WeWork and how he kind of took people down the path of that. And now they're saying WeWork may not be solvent, and some of their real estate owners are trying to look for fill-in alternatives because they have a lot of square footage out there and different contracts. But the point is that these people come in the same thing as the guy at FTX. Samuel Bankman Friedman. He came in with the whiz, like you said, that kind of 30 under 30, and the hot guy in crypto,
the billionaire who drives
right,
Honda.
And let's be real, no founders of color are ever going to get that type of shot to just no oversight. You look at the oversight, the lack of oversight they're giving on Twitter.
It's like too much eyes on
He's
you.
gonna get triple checked,
Yeah,
quadruple checked before you even get a
right,
chance.
exactly. You're gonna have somebody over your shoulder and somebody over that shoulder and somebody on the other shoulder, and a drone with a camera on you.
And just seeing Horowitz, they going to be drone, and that's like,
yeah,
no, but like, nah, that's like, seriously though, like, I think definitely as black founders, just to drift off a little bit on that, like, we should definitely hold the bar high because you don't want to be like the fraudster. Like, let's say it's going back to like having the media coverage. Now all eyes are on you, and you don't want to make that bad like perception of like your community, like and shit. Like,
I understand that part too, but I feel like sometimes there's so much at stake for like people of color. It's like you don't get the chance to fail. So it's like once you like get to a certain stage, everybody accept something like truly exceptional out of you. But at the end of the day, like sometimes you're just gonna fail. I don't think we get the opportunity to just fail. It's like if you fail, it's over. And then they look at one person failing and make it seem like the whole rest of people is gonna be doing the same thing. So it's just like it's a weird dynamic where a lot of like people who look like us don't get the opportunity to just fail. And like if you really look at like how most people become successful is through failure. So if you don't get that opportunity to just fail, then how can you become successful? How can you learn from like the failures? So I don't know. I just think we need more opportunities to actually be able to fail and actually learn from that, rather than just like closing us in and just like one opportunity. You just get one chance, and if you miss that one chance, you're done.
I don't know. You definitely could fail because that's just like, I don't know. I think it's just how you feel and how you feel up from that. Because now,
Yeah.
if you fail and then you start complaining, it's like, yeah, they didn't give us enough money, and it's like, let's say you had all the good VCs on your side, and then you still fail, it's fine. But then how you gonna pivot and like going back to what Bob said, like, okay, fuck it, like now I'm gonna restart and I'm gonna show you how I can do this again.
So let's go back to the original question though.
Mhm.
A product based company,
Or founder, like,
all founder led, or personality led startup or product in itself, which one is the most ideal to succeed?
and Bob, you said,
Well, I'm gonna say is when you say personality led, there's two sides to that because one is the charisma, but the other is that investors like to invest in the team and in the leader. So if somebody is not just the charisma, but that they actually have the leadership qualities and the vision, because that's the one thing about knowing, having somebody on board who can know if it's time to pivot, who can take the big idea, but also be willing to go through a process where we're going to iterate it and we're going to look at these milestones. And if we hit these milestones, we keep going. If we miss these milestones, that's the trigger to to say we might have to pivot, and they're going to want somebody who is going to be able to make that hard decision if you get to that point where you have to say, okay, we may have to do a hard left turn here. We might have to trim some staff. We might have to do some this. We might have to rethink our whole strategy. But having the confidence that somebody's willing to, able to do that, I think those are the things that investors certainly going to look at. And the charisma is good for selling it because in a lot of situations, the CEO is still your top salesperson, even if the first sales thing is selling for money, is pitching, getting in investors. And then sometimes it's also about getting partnerships.
Don't mean to cut you off, but where I was thinking more along the lines is not towards the investor side,
Yeah.
but more on the consumer level.
Mhm.
So on a consumer level, do you think people think more of the product first, or they think more of like the person promoting the product? That's what I was trying to like go along the lines of. So if you look at certain products, do you think is it the value of the product, or is it because of the person promoting that product that makes it successful?
I think it depends on the product in the industry, and it depends on how unique your product is. Think about Colonel Sanders. What is he selling? Chicken. Chicken. You can't get more generic than chicken.
Yeah.
But there is product differentiation in the taste. But along with that, there's the story. It's the secret recipe of herbs and spices that's somewhere behind a safe in his old Kentucky home. They made that even way back when they had the storyline, and he was the spokes character for the brand. So if the person is the spokes character for the brand, then it can work.
Yeah. The reason why I'm saying this, right? So there's this specific product that I just tried not too long ago. So there's this energy drink called Prime. I don't know if you guys heard about that. So it's like two YouTubers. One is KSI. He's like a huge YouTuber. Um he's like one of the biggest YouTubers in the UK, really known. And then there's another one called Logan Paul. So they basically promoting this drink called Prime. And like the numbers is ridiculous how much money they're making off of it. And I tried the product, and the product is the drink, bro. It's not that good. Let me just be honest. It's a solid drink, but it's not like super amazing how people making the scene. So I think that when sometimes people are so attached to the person, they can overlook the product. So if the product is not that great, they just love that person so much they're willing to support it.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes I think you're also right, but I think sometimes depending on, like you said, the industry, certain people might be able to overlook the product because they just care so much about the person. They just care more about the personality rather than the product. And yeah, that's all I just wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, we're in that era. YouTube, TikTok can drive numbers to where it's about whoever is talking about it, and people run out and they'll convince themselves they like the product.
Because I would look at it on YouTube. People will be drinking it. I'm thinking this is like amazing. Like kids are like going crazy over it. Like sometimes like it goes out of stock and people like resell it for like crazy. Like the drink and the stuff costs $3. People will sell it for like $20, sometimes $100, and people will buy it. And I'm thinking like, oh, this shit must be amazing. And then I tried it like 2 days ago. Even I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. I don't remember exactly. And I'm drinking it. I'm like,
Sucks.
it don't suck, but like it's not like anything super crazy.
But also remember this:
The marketing is crazy.
will those products stand the test of time? Will be people in 3 or 4 years still be buying Mr. Beast burgers? Are they, will they be drinking this drink? The thing is, you can create a fad. It's like a microwave; it heats up real quick. But are you going to create a brand that's going to become a brand that's there year in, year out?
And that's where it goes back to the personality, because those people have built a brand of themselves for quite a long time. So if they continuously keep promoting this product, people are so attached to these people that it doesn't matter about the product anymore. It's about the person. So it's like I think it's still gonna be there because right now they're doing partnerships with like some huge companies. They have one with the UFC. They have one with some football clubs. So it's like those are like long term contracts they sign. So it's like it's gonna be here for a little while. So it's just like I think we're coming to an age where if you as a person can build a brand and then on top of it you create a product from that, you will succeed no matter what. Because now the product in itself is not as important anymore. It's you as a brand, which is way more important. So like if you could create your own brand and then create something out of that, then you will succeed in my opinion. Especially in this era that we're in. If you look at someone like the YouTubers, all of them starting to create their own product. But I don't think necessarily people are buying it because the product is so great. They're buying it because they have this emotional attachment with these celebrities, these influencers, and all those people that
Mm.
they could overlook that product.
Yeah, I get that too. Just to add in, I think it'll be more for that particular question. I think it is a bit of both, like the founder and the product, but I think it's mostly product led because when let's say Jake Logan Paul, right? Like in KSI, they get older and then their demographic shifts, like how they're gonna capture the next generation. Like, is it gonna still be their same amped up because they're getting old? Yeah, you all gotta get old, and like that person individually is not gonna be there forever. Like they could leave that story, and they could still have that like, because I think Logan Paul and Jake Paul, they're like kind of brand is just like just do anything, like go crazy,
Yeah.
like I'm amped. Oh my god, like I'm young, I'm hip, and like it's gonna be a next young and hip and cool and next Mr. Beast probably not doing similar content, but then they're gonna capture their audience and they're gonna have overlap in their generation. They're because it might be more skewed towards now they're older and now you have someone who's like elevated, like an elevated Mr. Beast, and he's taking market share from Mr. Beast himself, right? So it's just always going to be demographic shifts. It's those things in marketing is called like perception bias. It's like they're biased towards the person because they create cool content first and foremost. Like they created that following, that cult following, like, but cults die. So like you're not gonna be part of the cult forever. And then when you grow up, you don't drink the Kool Aid no more. You just wake up and it's got corny.
Yeah.
So it's like his everything else he does after that is corny. Like let's say for example Lil Yachty, like he does whatever with this brand. Nobody cares about him. Like his music not popping. He's not popping no more. Like I'm done.
Oh,
Like,
I disagree.
yeah.
Lil Yachty is lit right now. I don't know about you, but Lil Yachty is
I
going
don't know.
crazy,
Like
bro.
not me. I don't like him.
What?
Like I like him, but as a person, individual. But like
His music is crazy right now. He's dropping some heat, bro.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
don't
get in
listen to
tune,
him.
bro. Lil Yachty's going crazy. Like right now, it's probably like one of some of the best music he's dropping. So you
The
gotta
only
get in
shit I've
tune.
seen actually today is from work, where him and Busta Rhyme teamed up to do some type of Google challenge, where like is this
I
mass
took the walk
was it that?
to Poland.
Oh, I
You don't
don't
hear that
know.
song?
Nah.
I took the. Alright, bro, you gotta get in tune, bro.
Me
He's
and
going.
Bob don't know what you talking about, bro. We like
Bob,
what?
Bob gotta get in tune too, bro.
Yeah, have you walked to Poland?
I don't know what you talking
He
about.
took the walk, not the. He didn't walk. He took the walk.
Oh, the wok.
The
That's a drink
walk.
or some shit.
That's a drink.
Nah, I don't know
Feel
about
me?
that, bro. I'm getting older too, so
The
it's like
walk
a
is
drink,
like
like some drugs,
it's
right?
like a thing to pour in. It's like lean, but I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know too much about the drug shit. I don't do that shit. But that song is heat. But anyways, let's switch it up a little bit. We talked about a little bit about product and founders. We're still gonna be talking about founders, but like talking about it in a different way. So I remember I read an article, and I think I sent you the same thing too, Ron. It was talking about how the way startups are being created and how startups are going to start going is now rather towards where you need a bunch of people. We just need three people. And I think the three people that you need is like what, the hustler, the hacker, and the hipster. And the reason why they was talking about that was like it's because of AI. So they're talking about how AI is like making things a lot more faster. And you just need a three-person team of like somebody who can hustle, can get you open up doors,
Sales.
the sales, um, I didn't read the article all the way, so
Oh, yeah,
Ron,
yeah.
if you want to help me, you
Yeah,
can just
yeah.
help me out.
The creative would probably be the CEO, so that's the visionary.
Yeah,
The
the hipster
and then the hustlers, the sales,
and the
and
hacker is the ones gonna be building
obviously
it.
like the
Yeah,
tech and stuff like that. So those usually are just across any business is usually that, like, you even go to oil and gas is like you gotta have that, like,
yeah.
you know.
And then you was having a conversation like off the record, and Bob was just talking about more of like how AI is gonna be able to like just help you start a business
Yeah, Bob
faster and
literally
easier.
said the
So
article. I thought you read the
let's talk about it
article
a little
one
bit more,
time. I'm
Bob.
like, what?
You want to put your little insights into it?
Yeah, well, so now you can assign AI different identity. And so when people talk about AI like it's this one big monolithic thing, it's not. It's a sea of very, very different types of things. Even with these large language models, you can train them to do different things. So you can have one section or one identity that is the marketing, and you can have one identity that is financial, and you can have one identity that you're using for customer service. And so you can actually kind of mirror a management team that still can be overseen by the humans. But now, like you said, you could do it with three people, but those three people would have access to these different sections of AI that can address. You can start to train it to do what you want to do in marketing, or do what you need to do in customer management and order fulfillment, or whatever. And so I think the idea is that now is a time where people are starting to kind of break down the boxes of how they saw companies run, and trying to see, well, how can I run them more efficiency with less people? And that's not going away. Every business, from small and large, is going to try to run more efficient with less people. And it's really about trying to understand where that's going to occur, so that you want to be on the right side of it and not the wrong side of it.
I think Bob wrote the article, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you, I swear, because it's literally that's kind of sums up what it was.
Yeah. And then just to like add on to like what Bob is saying, because I think I was telling Ron about this before. I was just like, I think we're coming into a time where you're gonna need to learn how to create a business, and especially with the way AI is going, it's gonna take a lot of jobs away, but at the same time, it's creating a lot of opportunities. So where I think the future is gonna be a bunch of people owning micro businesses. So you're gonna have to learn how to create your own micro business for you to be able to sustain yourself. And I
Mm.
think with the way AI works, it makes it easier. So if you're somebody who like, I know, I feel like everybody has sort of an idea of like what they want to create, and sometimes it's just like they don't have the understanding or they don't have certain skill sets. But now with AI, you don't necessarily need to have all of these skill sets to actually build something. You just need to know how to utilize it. And I think when people are able to learn how to utilize it for what it is, you could actually create a micro business where you could actually be able to generate some income. And I think that's where society is going towards, more of the line of like a bunch of people having micro businesses where we all interact with each other and actually utilize our own skill sets.
Mm.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that, but I think the one thing that people are not also looking at is that in that process, you also still need to use the AI to help you to learn how to do whatever, run your business better. So there's a certain commitment you have to have in terms of utilizing the AI, but you're not going to get the best use unless you, along the way, learn more about how it's actually supposed to run. So that you don't have to do everything, but you still have to know which direction the ship is turning and why it's going a certain way. So, some of the things we talked about earlier, making sure that your product connects with the market, that's more that's something you kind of learn along the way, and it's more of an intuitive thing. And sometimes it's not obvious, or sometimes you do know it, because if you understand the market and you understand what the needs of the market are, now it's easier for you to try to figure out how to move this business around to be able to deliver an answer to the problem that the market has.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, your business is going to be sustainable, but you could run it with less people, which means you can make more money, you can do it with less time. And I think people are going to be looking more for creating revenue streams than, you think about businesses, but you really want to think about revenue streams. And certain businesses are very, very predictable, and certain businesses are all over the place.
Yeah.
But if you can, start one business that covers your living expenses and is consistent, and it only costs you maybe you only need to spend 4 or 5 hours a week on it once it's up and running, then you can take that time and either enjoy your life and do other things, paint and write stories, or you could start another business.
Yeah.
And you can start to stack them and you start to have more leverage. And then if you understand how business works, if you have a predictable business, that the more you grow that business, the more value it has. It's like a building, like an income producing property. They look at the rent rolls and they use a formula and say, all right, if this is the rent roll and this is how much we're clearing, then this business building is worth about X. And so if you can grow the rent rolls, you're making money. And that's how you create value. Well, you can do that with a digital property the same way you could do it with a physical property. So
Talking about digital properties, it just reminded me of something that we was having a conversation about last time. Afropolitan.
uh-huh.
So you want to talk a little bit about like what Afropolitan is? Because I remember when you was telling me about this show, I was just like, bro, this shit is fire.
All right. So the concept, and I'm gonna ask people to go check out YouTube and watch a couple of videos. But basically, their idea is a digital nation state for people in the black diaspora. So it's basically like having a country that doesn't have borders, but it kind of exists in cyberspace, and then in certain pockets of places you'll have like they compared it to like a Chinatown. Like, if you go in major cities, there's a Chinatown, you know, and so they're going to create kind of those types of spaces that where there's a physical presence, but you would have a digital presence, so you could literally have a passport that could, be accepted and travel, and so the idea to me is very intriguing because we're now in this Web3 world where we're looking at ways that finance is decentralized and commerce is decentralized. And so having a decentralized passport is something that would help us because people of color in the diaspora, we've never gotten a good shake from the whole nation state concept because most of the nation states that we run and control were set up by other people, and they were set up to fail or to keep those countries, economically subservient to other countries and other economies.
Yeah.
And so now we're seeing new tools where we can kind of break off those things and start to form our own more healthier economies so that we're not, worrying about where is the dollar trading or where is, oil trading or where is all these commodities trading that literally affect the economies of people, who now have to buy food or supplies at crazy prices, and it has nothing to do with anything that's going on in their country.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it's something that's very much needed. I think it's something new. I haven't heard anything like that. The only person I actually seen talk about it is I think his name is Balaji, something like that. He wrote a book called The Network State, and I think that's where that guy, what's his name? I don't know if you remember his name. The dude that's creating Afropolitan.
Eche, and I forgot his last name, but yeah, Eche.
His name is Etcher. That's where he got the concept from, and I think it's something. I'm excited to see where it goes. It's like because they have like a long term vision of like where they want to like achieve it at. So they're doing like incrementally, like they're building that incrementally. So I think it's something exciting. But I think when you was talking, something else that you said was, um, some of these African countries are economically subservient, and I think, in my opinion, I feel like that's kind of changing. And I think, what do you think? What do you see like these African countries going, especially like some of these countries like Nigeria, Rwanda, um, Mozambique? Some of them are actually making a lot of changes. What do you think is? What do you see like Africa going?
Well, Africa's always been a battleground for resources, and that's definitely still true. So what we have to do in putting it in context is looking at some of the influences, such as the Chinese influence over the last several years. China always comes and they have the money to spend for resources, but they always look for some sort of a control. So they may go to a country and they'll pave the roads, but now they control the roads in a black country. Yeah. You've had Russia now that's making its incursions, and it's said that Russia is funding the Ukraine war with resources coming out of Africa. And then you've always had the traditional relationships like France and these European countries that are always have been pulling out resources. And then, there's the US. When the US a lot of time has its head in the sand to these conflicts, but we've always had these conflict areas like in the Congo where the coltan comes out, the coltan that ends up literally, there's no cell phone without coltan from Africa. So, if you're listening to this on your cell phone, thank African resources. So that's a real thing. So, Africa has a lot of promise, but it still has a lot of problems because of all of those influences that have been worked behind the scenes. To where you have a country like Nigeria, oil producing, but their primary export, as far as I know, is the crude, not refined. So they're losing a whole part of the value chain by having shipping the crude to somebody else and somewhere else where they refine it.
And I think one of the biggest reasons why a lot of these African countries are not actually succeeding as much as they should is, so I was listening to this lady. Her name is Magat Wade. So she's basically an entrepreneur. She's from Senegal, and she basically talks about why a lot of these countries are not succeeding is because of, one, the regulations that they set and the laws that they set in these countries are not set for creating businesses. And if you look at how a lot of these like countries that actually succeeded and became like successful, like Singapore, for example, Singapore was a third world country at one point, but they created laws where businesses were able to thrive. And when a business is able to thrive, it creates economic opportunities for people to actually get jobs, and more jobs create more opportunities for people to elevate, increase the income. It just make the country in itself become way more attractive for people to come and invest into it. So I think the biggest reason why a lot of these African countries are not succeeding as much is because they don't create any economic opportunities. They don't allow any businesses to actually thrive. So for example, in Senegal, she was talking about how the taxing on a business is so ridiculous. You will pay fines for every export that you do. So you will export some, because she was creating like, she had like some sort of like natural resources that she needed to create her product. But every single thing that she will like basically try to import into the country, they will literally tax her even more, like a surcharge. And it was just like, why would I do business here when I'm getting supercharged in my own country? I could go somewhere else and create a business there. So it was just like, I think if African countries and African leaders were to start thinking about how they can create laws that's actually beneficial for people to come and start creating businesses, and with these businesses allowing people to get more jobs, it just create a whole different dynamic and a whole different environment where people actually want to come and invest. And I was actually talking to somebody. He's an investor, and he invests in Africa. And he was telling me about like how a lot of times people are afraid to come to Africa because of the laws. the laws changes like this. Like the leaders could create a law one time and then they feel like, oh, it's not going their way. They just want to make more money for themselves. They're selfish and they would change the law, or like the law in itself is just nobody follows the law. It's just like, so I think if there was more regulations set to actually make businesses thrive, Africa would be in a whole different place right now.
I agree, and they also the issue of corruption has to be addressed
Yeah.
because there's a lot of corruption, and that's sometimes at the heart of all where everything gets stopped because there's so many bureaucrats that have the handshake. You know, if the hand doesn't come back with something in there that's
Yeah.
shaking, then you can't do anything. You can't move anywhere in that country, and so that stifles it, and that also makes them susceptible to outside forces. When you have people in the government that can end up having a $5 million apartment in France or in New York,
Yeah.
or bank accounts in European banks.
Swiss
Yeah.
banks.
Let me just add one more thing to that. I think it goes back to creating a law that everybody has to follow. So let's look at America for a second.
Mhm.
In America, there's going to be people who are bad players and are going to try to cheat the system, but there's a law set in place for those people. So if somebody finds a way, a loophole to, you know, do something that's not good, the law is set there so that, oh, people like him go to jail for that. But in Africa, there's no law for that. So if somebody steals the money, everybody just in cohesion. Everybody just allows it to happen. So it's just like, I think it goes back like, if every like African countries were to come together and create a code of ethics and create a law that people has to follow, and if you don't follow that law, then there's repercussions for that.
So it's like no constitution, basically. It's no like,
There's constitutions, but like
mm,
there's no repercussions for it. Like people just don't follow it, or they just change it.
wow,
Yeah, it's crazy.
that's crazy. But I mean, I think I told you too, like a little bit about like when you have these people who are like coming up leaders and just see corruption, and then they get they seat in the position to go to the treasury and get money, like and billions is in there. Their like perception of it's
But
like
I get
ah
what you're saying
damn,
too.
like
But it gets way deeper than just like the people in power. Because I think you said something about like certain of these like big countries sort of like hold these people in economic subservience, and I think that's some of the reasons why sometimes it's not even like the people in power in these countries; it's like the people who's above them. So it's like, for example, like talk about my country, Guinea. So even in Guinea, like sometimes like, we have a lot of natural resources, right? To even like mine some of these natural resources, you have to go through a certain party, and those parties doesn't allow you to actually buy the machines to actually do the mining yourself. So it's like, how can you become a country where you can mine, you can become successful or rich if you can't even mine your own resources? So it's just like it gets super deep, and it just becomes even like to the point where it's like people start just like giving up, like people in power, like people who's supposed to be like the presidents and like the governments just give up because like
I
they
think
have essentially no power to
so.
actually make any change happen.
It's like it's a president, right? And he's on like a particular party, but then that other party owns like these resources for like controlling certain things you can make.
When I say
Uh,
party, I don't mean like the people in the government themselves. I'm talking about like outside people,
oh, it's like
like different countries.
I got you. So investors or like people who just own like certain land and stuff in Guinea, and they like, nah, I don't want to do what you were trying to do. Like, I don't care about these resources. It's like, I
Something
don't.
like that. Yeah.
But what if like the people is just like, nah, fuck that. We gonna take your shit. Like, you're not here.
Or
Yeah, there's different levels to it. That's definitely depending on countries because in a lot of countries, the tribes control the resources, and each tribe has a chief. So that person, you know, is acts like a local elected official or a governor. In certain areas, you have to, have that relationship to get things done.
Yeah.
So there's so many levels, and then the thing you have in Africa is some of these country borders were cut up by Europeans. They're not the natural borders. So you can have the country border that's cut this way, but then you have tribal, borders that cross country borders, and so a lot of it gets very, very convoluted.
Yeah, it's deep. I think it's too deep for like a conversation to have that kind of conversation right now. It's important to speak the truth, but at the same time, it's like sometimes not everything needs to be said because we know it's like it gets deeper than what it really is.
We also need to talk about there are organizations like ECOWAS, which is the Organization of West African States. There are movements, that are cross border that are trying to address a lot of these problems. And so, we have to understand and look that at the end of the day, it's always about collective action. If we can get people to understand where their problems are aligned and work together, and also recognize sometimes when you're fighting somebody next to you, but your enemy is not the person who's next to you. The enemy is somebody else who's trying to keep you in conflict, so that while you stay in conflict, they can sneak in the back door and grab resources.
And I think, like Bob said, is like this change happening, and I think us as the youth need to actually, you know, step up and not allow the same mistakes of like our previous ancestors, that our predecessors. That's what I meant. They already made the mistakes. I think we need to learn from what they made and actually take over and actually utilize the knowledge that we gain from them and actually make change actually occur. And I think if we as the youth come together, especially like some of us who live in America and some of us live in these countries where there's actually a great education, you actually learn a lot of things. And I think if you're able to actually learn and have that kind of like mindset and go back to your country and install those kind of things, I think it's gonna make a whole lot of different change. Yeah. But let's see. That was a good conversation. Let's see if we have any other topics.
Yeah. So my last words on this is that I believe the numbers show the demographics that Africa is one of the most youngest continents on the planet demographically,
Yeah.
and so there's an army of potential there, and so but that potential has to be realized by this generation of youth and throughout the diaspora being able to grab onto the technical resources and the knowledge resources. It's not just technical. There's access to knowledge right now is unprecedented on a global basis, that you can literally tap into the internet anywhere and extract very valuable, useful knowledge that you can put into play. So if this generation of youth can grab into that and start to understand how to take that knowledge and put it into positive action wherever they are, then there's an opportunity for a revolution that people won't see coming, because it can spread virally and it can spread in a very wide way.
I agree. Um, what about you, Ron? You got anything on top of that?
Um, nah, just like probably just wrap it and say that I think Africa is just like going to be like the next superpower. I think so many like ways and stuff. Like you could go crazy and say like geography and how like certain things is like pulling back the, because I don't know if you guys remember, just quickly, like Pangea and stuff like that,
Yeah.
like how like the continents actually separated, and like how supposedly it's like inching back closer again to come back. Because I just had this whole philosophical thing of like the reason that why Africa now is getting looked at is because of those kind of scientifics coming out now that the tectonic plates is coming back.
Everything goes
It's
in
like
full
all coming
circle.
back to
It's all
like
go back to
Africa, and it's like,
the origins, bro.
and because that's where humanity started, and I think like it's like a great country to start investing in, just to look towards, or at least like put it as a note. Like that's why sometimes I do want to like build and get enough capital to deploy, and I do want to go see it and see how it is, how it operates.
Pull up to the motherland,
You
man. It's
know,
lit out there.
yeah. So I mean,
It's
yeah,
lit.
definitely gonna go have fun first, and then business. But yeah, man, definitely.
But that's pretty much it for today's podcast, man. We're gonna end on a positive note.
Yes.
And Thank you once again, Bob, for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
If you have anything you want to shout out, you can shout out. He's definitely gonna come back on
Yeah,
for
he's
another
coming back
episode.
on.
Today was just, he was here at the office and he just wanted to come on and just chop it up and just have a good conversation, which I think we definitely had. But anything you want to shout out real quick?
Just stay tuned, not only to this podcast. I got a few things down the pike, and I'm also going to try to see maybe if we can get Eche on your podcast.
That would be
Yeah,
dope.
yes,
That would be super
we'll
dope.
work on that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, yo.
All right, man. Peace.